Hi there, everyone. Welcome. We're going to give a few minutes here to get started. I know that we have several people who are registered here, and I want to make sure everybody can get in. Okay. And so as we're getting started, if you do have questions, please feel free to type them into the chat box.
Hola Rita,
Hola, Richard. I have
¿cómo
several
estás?
um, questions we're going to lead in with. And for those of you who were at NAM National, we thank you for joining us again. What we wanted to do is a deeper dive into really getting started as a non-delegated correspondent. And the goal is to be able to not only answer some common questions that people have as far as getting started, but really answer your questions. What are you thinking about? Where are you at on the journey? Matt, I know you see that so often when you're having conversations with people across the country as far as, I've become a broker now and I want to become a non-del. So what does that look like? When do I need to make that pivotal point? And one of the things I hear often, I know you hear often from people who have made that switch to becoming a non-del, is they wish they would have done it sooner, right?
Yeah, we talk about that a lot. A lot of our customer, First Funding's been around since 2002, and so a lot of our customers are coming up on 10, 15, 18 years with us, and they've seen the evolution of the non-delegated space. And what we're doing right now is it's really pushing to the max. I mean, it's becoming such a big part of the landscape in TPO lending these days. And we hear people that say that I was afraid to do it at first, but now that I did it, I wish I would have done it sooner. And we're starting to see a lot of great lenders that started off with us, quite honestly, with like a $3 million facility, kind of like a starter facility, maybe 2 million, $3 million non-delegated facility, growing into 100, 115, $150 million facility. So it's been pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and if you guys, Jeff, thanks for hopping on camera. If you guys want to hop on camera, feel free to do this. We want to have a very informal conversation here, and we do have some key questions we're going to lead in with. I'm going to go ahead and start off. We are recording. We'll have a copy of the recording we'll send out to everyone. So if you want to go back and watch it, share it with a business partner, whatever, always happy to do that as well. My name is Ginger Bell, and I'm facilitating this on behalf of First Funding. And so we have Matt Coles, who's the National Vice President of First National Sales Manager. I'm making you Vice President now, First Funding. And then we've got Melissa Harris, who is the senior compliance partner at Strategic Compliance Partners. So welcome. We do have, I know John is hopefully going to hop on and talk about some appraisals, and Ross may hop on as well. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. And again, as you have questions, feel free to type them in the chat. And just so that I know you can use the chat, because sometimes Zoom does some funky things with chat, just type into the chat box. Let us know what part of the country you're calling in from today. I'm in Portland, Oregon. It is cold here, I will tell you that. I think winter is upon us. And I know, Matt, you're in Dallas, so weather's usually pretty good there.
Yeah, it's nice out today.
Oh, Jeff, Anchorage, Alaska. Very good. Have you seen snow yet?
Um, this afternoon we're supposed to get like 12 hours of continuous snow, so
Oh my gosh.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Wow, great.
It's a dusting here in the bowl right now. It's all in the mountains, but
Yeah. And
it's
then
coming.
we've got all the way into Florida as well, so that's great. Okay, so let's just kick it off. And Matt, I think the question really on everyone's mind, we have seen a big surge of mortgage brokers. I've heard upwards of 50% of origination now is going through the mortgage broker channel. And so, what are you seeing that's driving brokers to really look into getting into the non-del channel?
It's really kind of, I'll say twofold, but more like two and a half fold. So first of all, what we're seeing is the originator is back, right? The individual originator is back from the doldrums of 2012 to 2015, and then we saw it start to rise in 2018, and then really kind of kick into high gear in 2020. So a lot of our partners or a lot of our colleagues on the retail side came into the space of TPO. They didn't want to work for distributed retail anymore. They said, "Hey, I can kind of go do my own thing." So they joined the TPO world, whether they joined a broker shop that was already in existence or they started their own. And so they got their feet wet with it. And the natural evolution of what we're seeing is the growth of them moving and saying, well, I'm ready to take my business to the next level. Let me go ahead and try to move into the non-delegated space. So we saw that kind of writing on the wall when we first started seeing the growth of TPO again, right? A lot of great organizations have driven that. The other side of it, the reason why we're seeing so much explosive growth in it, in my opinion, is because the investors are embracing it. It used to be one or two investors were really good at non-delegated. Everyone else kind of stumbled along their way. Even myself, being a former account executive and sales manager at a large, investor, there were times early in my career where I was hesitant to sell it because we just weren't very good at supporting the non-delegated customer. That with technology has really it's been very easy for a lot of investors to come in and say, you know what, we can help you. We can provide the fulfillment support, the underwriting support, all the support that you're going to need in order to make that transition even easier. So, and then kind of the half thing that I wanted to talk about was kind of ties back into the first one, which is the branding aspect of it. Everyone has a brand now. Social media has allowed us to all have a brand. There is no better reason to build out a brand than on the non-delegated side, right? I'm a big believer that getting to the closing table and having those loan docs signed in your name rather than XYZ investor makes all the difference in the world and allows you to continue that brand from start to finish. So that's why we're seeing the explosive growth in the non-delegated space. I mean, literally, I just pulled numbers for October. I mean, sales team over here is pumping out 40 or 50 applications per month for people that want to move into the space. So
Wow.
it's exploding on our side.
Yeah. So, and that branding aspect is obviously one of the benefits. And Ross Miller has joined us now. Ross is with Miller Home Mortgage. Ross, how are you?
Sorry for the delay. You have to, adhere to the customer sometimes and
Yeah,
trying to get off the
absolutely.
phone.
Absolutely.
Customer always comes first. That's
Yeah.
everything.
First and foremost, absolutely. So Ross was also on our panel that we did at NAM National, and I know, Ross, you had a line a mile long after the panel of people wanting to ask you questions. And really that's so important when you're looking at, going into this, is having that support, which I know, SP provides so much of that support on the compliance side, obviously first funding, so much of that support. But really the transitioning to, having those conversations with individuals like yourself, Ross, who have been through that before. And one of the things that you said in Vegas was you wish you would have done it sooner. And so, looking at those benefits, I mean, here we've got, Jeff, who's, in Alaska, and he's looking at, okay, what's the benefit of becoming a non-del? What are those benefits, Ross? Why you've been a non-del for how long now?
2012,
Okay.
I think, is when we first got signed up with first funding.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, in Vegas, we talked about some of these things, the independence, the appraisal panel piece is an important part. Timing, being able to control what's going on in your transactions, I think is important, especially if you're a bit of a micromanager. You get to control those things. You're also able to perform for your realtors, right? So, I guess the easiest thing to do is give you a comparison. I've got a brokered loan I'm doing right now. We submitted conditions. The title company's asking for the closing docs. The lender won't send the closing docs until the clear to close is issued. There's nothing I can do about it, right? But if this was a non-del loan, I would have sent the closing docs 2 days ago. They'd already know what the numbers are. They'd have everything. I wouldn't be waiting on this company. Now, I would still be telling them, look, we're not closing yet until we get the green light from the lender and get the clear to close. But we're not waiting on somebody else who's got 10 files on their desk to get through underwriting before I can send a closing package to the borrower. Or to the borrower and to the title company.
Right.
So you just get so much more control over your files than when you're acting as just a broker.
Yeah. And that control is critical, especially when you are talking about timing. Obviously, in a purchase market, that's critical. You know, First Funding has an amazing product with FlexClose, Matt, that gives so much opportunity to actually fund outside of the traditional federal wire, times and dates and on the weekends and things like that. So when you put the two of those together, of having that control, and then having that ability, saying, okay, we did get down to the last wire, but we can still control it again.
Well, I'll tack on to what Ross said there about the control process, which is also Friday last week was probably one of the busiest days in our industry. Thursday and Friday last week was probably two of the busiest days in our industry in at least 3 or 4 years. I mean, it was October was a record-breaking month for a lot of people in our industry, and the ability for you to order a wire on Wednesday to disperse on Friday, right? Because you had everything done, and to Ross's point, the control piece of it, and to know that you don't have to wait for a funder on a Friday afternoon on a wholesale loan that may or may not push that fund button until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Just takes all the stress. And so when we got into the office on Thursday and Friday morning, we already had 1,000 orders that were already sent out for disbursement that day by 8 o'clock in the morning, right? So the control and the ability to order that. And then, yeah, thank you, Ginger. We do have the FlexClose product, and I don't want to make this a first advertisement, but FlexClose is the ability, again, for Friday afternoon last Friday was the last day of the month. We were able to send out wires out till 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, because you had people dressed up as Dracula trying to send out their wires while they're in Halloween, right? And it was a busy day. And so the last thing you don't want to have is missing a funding cutoff time, right? I don't know what a standard investor's funding cutoff time. Typically, at least when I was in that role, it was 12:30 Pacific time, right? But if I had a 1004D that had to get done at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because the borrower wasn't home, I could still get that thing done. I could still get that file funded at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it gives you a lot of flexibility and control.
Well, and I think that's important. So, when we look at people that are in the calls, Jeff's in Alaska, Sandra, you're in California, West Coast time zone with East Coast, cutoff times is a challenge in of itself, right?
Yeah.
So, when you look at that, it's like, okay, there's a benefit right there. So that's one of those things. Anytime there's a benefit, though, and I'm going to get back to some of the benefits, but I want to talk to Melissa about some of that. It's like, okay, the first step then is like, okay, I'm a broker, I'm licensed in the state. Sandra, you're in California, so you have your California DRE. What's the first step as far as saying, okay, I want to become a non-del that I need to take in order to facilitate this on a compliance side?
Yes, obviously licensing, which we offer here at SCP. So making sure you do have your lender's license or the license, that is required in that state to originate non-del, or they look at you like you're a retail lender. So to originate retails. I will tell you guys that we had one client that thought they had the right license in Washington. They originated non-del for about a year and ended up with a $60,000 fine because he was not licensed appropriately. So that's the first thing that we do here. When any of our clients say, hey, we want to look at the transition, we go into NMLS and we look at your licenses, your license types. What do you guys have?
And
you know,
every
and what do
state's
you need?
different. I mean, obviously we
Every
have the
state is
national
different.
standard with the NMLS, but each state, you know, when the SAFE Act passed, they still have their own requirements. There's just different licensing. California still has two, although I've heard
Definitely.
talk that they may be transitioning to just one. But as it is now, you need to make sure that you have that correct licensing, especially with the California DRE. Because
Right. And then
that
we also look at not just that, but is there a net worth requirement? Are there specific financials you need to submit? Are they audited, not audited? Do they have to go through some type of accounting, you know, performance? So we look at all of those items to help you guys prepare for applying for that specific license too.
right, which is critical as that goes along. So, you know, we have the compliance side. I want to get back to benefits for a minute because one of the biggest benefits is the appraisal. And you know, Ross, you talked about that control. So being able to select what your appraisal, you know, selection looks like is important. So what does yours look like as far as your appraisal management?
Yeah, so when this first came out, we looked at several different options. There's a software option where you can just get a software and you plug it in and you can put your appraisers in there and it, you know, spins a wheel or whatever and it you know picks whoever comes up on the
Like, let's
wheel
make
and that's who you get, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's still an option. You got to pick the appraisers that are on that wheel, right? But and I think Melissa will be able to speak about this is there when I looked at it, there's a bit of a compliance problem with that in my mind, which is, well, if the wheel spins, but I don't like the where it landed for this person. Can I spin the wheel again? And right. And you need to be able to defend yourself at the end of the day
Right.
if you're audited, right? So
Right.
what we ended up doing was we talked to 5 or 6 AMCs. These are not it's not class appraisals. It's not these guys that are doing 3,000 appraisals a day across the country. That's not who we're looking for. As a smaller business, I'm looking for the company doing 250 appraisals, but they have a portfolio of appraisers that we can use if necessary,
Right.
but they have a ability to create a group of appraisers that are assigned to Miller Home Mortgage. Okay. So, you know, I've got 5 or 6 appraisers in the New Orleans market. That's where most of my business is done. I've got 2 or 3 appraisers in Baton Rouge, but then I also have 2 or 3 appraisers in Houston and 2 or 3 appraisers in Dallas because I'm licensed in Texas also. So when I order an appraisal through the AMC I selected, effectively they spin the wheel, but what really happens is my understanding is they send out and they go, okay, for you 5 appraisers in New Orleans, here's an order. Which one of you want it? But it goes to those 5 people first. Do I care which one gets it? Not at all. I know they've got 20 years of experience. By the way, you can negotiate price. Jeff, I think they said you're in Alaska, right? So what we pay for an appraisal and what you guys are probably paying for an appraisal is going to be a completely different world. I negotiated $475 for the appraisal for a single family owner occupied. I'd be curious what you're seeing for a regular one.
Yeah, it all
Like
depends on whether or not it's in Anchorage, which is sort of the urban area of
Mhm.
Alaska, versus out in the remote. Anywhere. I mean, yeah, we'll just range it from like 800 to 1,600. It all depends. Sometimes you got to fly somebody out there and they
Yeah,
want
which is
best comps
which
for the rural areas, and it's
right.
all over the place up here.
Good. So what we negotiated with the appraisal management companies, they keep $75 and 400 goes to the appraiser. When I go through a non delegated appraisal model and we get that appraisal in, it might cost $550 or $600, and the appraisal management company is keeping 275 to 325. Why is the appraisal management company keeping that much money? right? I want my appraisers to get that. Some of the appraisers argued with me. They said, Ross, you're charging less than the big bank is charging. I went, right, but I'm giving you $400. How much are they giving you? And they were like, oh, on some of these deals, we get 275. I'm like, so it's better to take my deal, right? You get $125 more. And then they realized how the math works. So not only can you pick one of the AMCs that you're comfortable working with, you can negotiate with them for how much money they're going to keep, which means your appraisers are going to get more money and they're going to want your deals to come in and they're going to prioritize your deals when they get them from you.
And that goes back to what you're talking about, Ross, with the control side of it, which is you get to own that AMC relationship now, right? You get to develop that relationship with the AMC and not have to go through a third party, which is your wholesale partner. You get to own it.
And you can negotiate them against each other, by the way, right? So if you're talking to three of them, you can say, this is where I need my number to be in my market. What are you willing to take from each appraisal for that? And you might have two that are willing to take $100 from each appraisal, and somebody else who says, nope, I'm only doing it for $200. Well, you just dump them. And you go with the other two management companies.
That's exactly what every wholesale lender that you're brokering out to today is doing with their AMCs. They're going to the AMCs and say, hey, you can only, if you want to be part of my drop down, you can only charge X number. And the AMC can either say yes or no or pound sand or whatever. But you as the lender now get to have that conversation. You get this is a great point, Ross. I'm glad you brought that up. It's a fantastic opportunity. That AMC relationship is one of the least talked about gems of moving to non-delegated.
Yep.
I love it. So getting back into, okay, I made a decision. I want to get started. You talked about licensing as far as being one of the first steps, Melissa. And Sandra, thank you for your clarification in the notes that you're physically in California, but you're actually licensed and headquartered in Texas, but you have 14 state licenses. And that's often one of those things, if you are saying, okay, we're going to become non-del, it is because you are multi-state licensed. So when you're looking at this, again, it's like setting up this business. How you do that, Melissa, it's like, they need to have policies and procedures in place. They need to do all of those things. So what are some of the things they need to think about that? Even if they're on one state or multi-state, that they need to set in action in order to make this happen.
Yeah, I do want to piggyback off of Matt. He had mentioned that the reason why so many are transitioning is because of the support that everyone is giving throughout the industry. And his point was the investor support. And that's a really big deal, especially when it comes to disclosures. That's one of the most common exam issues that we see clients struggle with, especially when they transition to non-del, is their disclosure packages. So it's really important. Like if you don't have an LOS when you're a broker, you'll definitely have one when you become non-del. And we help you guys test out your initial disclosure packages, even if the investor does it. So there are, quite a few big ones that really embrace and help you guys through that transition. We even encourage you to send test packages from their systems if they allow that, for us to help you guys review, because that again is a pretty big issue when it comes to exam findings. Matt also mentioned another benefit, building your brand. I want to just touch on 2 points from a compliance perspective. There are some states out there that really encourage non-del. So if you do have that retail lender license, to issue their own pre-approvals. I'm not going to start the pre-approval, pre-qualification debate. I know that's huge in our industry. If you want to debate that, I'm happy to do that offline. But there are quite a few states that are looking at, if you do have the retail lender license, issuing those pre-approvals. And that's a big deal for a lot of our clients too. They want their name out. They want to represent themselves as being able to issue that. And so that's another benefit. We do help with pre-approval letters. That is something that we offer too, as is reviewing them to make sure they are compliant. And then again, pricing. I'm sure Ross can, comment on this, is you have more control over what you charge, what you don't charge. In that Section A lender box is what I'm specifically referring to. And we help clients with that as well. So making sure what you are charging will pass through an exam. You're not trying to throw in a bunch of junk fees because the investor is passing them on to you. What are you charging and what are you putting in that box, Section A? But there is a lot of control and flexibility you guys have to charge. Some other things from an operational standpoint, pick a great LOS. Mortgage call reports, they are a nightmare once you transition from broker to non-del, or I'm going to call it retail because that's what NMLS and the licensing look at you. Yeah, that's what they call you. Your financials become quarterly instead of annual, so you're reporting assets, liabilities, ownership, equity, income, expenses every quarter now instead of just once a year. Your call reports, they want more data. They want to see more information on the loans that you closed from a retail perspective. So you are completing a couple additional sections than what you typically would if you were just, broker. Another big transition is the post-close quality control reviews. Those are not required in the broker world. They are required on a monthly basis in the, retail space. So that's another, big transition for our clients, is that additional cost for those reviews.
Yeah, very much. And in getting started, and thank you for piggybacking on Matt's, because the two go hand in hand. And I think that's a lot of it when you're deciding, hey, this is the step I want to make, is, what are the benefits? What are the risks? That's the thing too. It's like, and compliance, obviously, it often falls into that risk box, right? And so setting it up right the first time so you avoid that $60,000 fine,
Right.
is critical to be able to do that. But when you're looking at, and First Funding has for decades helped so many brokers to know the path to go down. So from a standpoint of a warehouse facility, and I think just getting into that is like, first of all, what is a warehouse facility? What do they need to start with, Matt, as far as how much do they need? What's their net worth? What are some of the requirements there?
Yeah, so there's I think one of the things that ends up happening in our business is that most people work on theory of myth, right? And a lot of times people say, "Oh, I'm not big enough to have a warehouse facility." And I think Ross, you operate with a $3 or $4 million facility, if I'm not mistaken, right? And sorry, you're on mute there, Ross.
Hang on.
Yeah. Yeah. So, every business is unique. I don't want to give kind of blanket answers, but kind of rule of thumb, right? It takes $100,000 net worth to get a $3 million facility in your company, right? So that's kind of the basic rules for getting a facility. So it's not just the mega companies that are doing non-del. Ross, I think you're a company of 3 people, right? Or 4, maybe.
If you consider my wife and son employees, which they get paid, but they don't really do anything.
The family benefits.
I run
Your wife's not in the room, obviously.
Look, we're in the middle of a government shutdown. I can't get insurance anymore with just myself and my wife, so I have to have a third person. So my son then has to become an employee in order to qualify for health insurance. It's ridiculous. But what you were saying is I have a $2 million line.
Yeah, so so it just depends on what your book of business is. Most people in the non-delegated space aren't going to bank their FHA stuff. They're still going to continue to broker that out. So you can just literally, you can customize the warehouse facility to fit your needs. And you don't need to, if you fund $10 million, or let's just call this, if you fund $5 million a month, you don't necessarily need a $5 million facility because you're going to use the same dollar over and over again on a monthly basis. The myth that I continuously have to overcome is, oh, it's only for the bigger companies, right? And so when I run the numbers, the average lender with first funding, and we're talking about upwards of 1,000 lenders at this point, the average lender is only putting 11 loans through us on a monthly basis. It's not like everyone is this massive 100, 200, 300 unit a month producer that's in the non-delegated space. A lot of small shops, my dear friend Ross included, operate as a non-del just like they would if they were a bigger shop, but they're operating it with 2 or 3 people. It's a really, really easy space to get into. Easy with regards to the qualifications of getting into it. It's not a massive number. I mean, there were people that came up to me in Vegas that said, "Oh, I thought I had to have $1 million net worth in order to get a warehouse facility." I'm like, well, if you have to have $1 million net worth, I don't have very many customers. Right. I mean, so that's the bottom line of it. It's not, the barrier of entry is not that challenging.
Yeah. And that's important to look at, to be able to say overcoming some of those myths.
But you do need to run it like a business. And that's one of the things that I do run into quite a bit, right? That broker to banker, I say, well, how much do you keep in your business? I don't keep anything in my business. Do you have a business bank account? Like, you do have to run your organization as a business when you want to become a non-delegated. And Melissa does a great job of talking about this. Like, you do have to have policies and procedures, and you do have to have banking, and you do have to have accounting systems in place. So you do have to operate it as if it is a true business. And you can't just fly by the seat of your pants and say, I don't keep any money in my company.
No Gmail email accounts.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's so important to look at, which honestly, guys, if you're running a business, you should be running it as a business, no matter whether you're a broker or retail non-del, whatever that is. I mean, that's just people, that is important. The credibility this day and age is critical. So yeah, no Gmail accounts, get your branding, get your website, make sure you have what you need. And then the other thing, and that's why I like putting these panels together, is because, you know, my friend Dan Sullivan wrote a book years ago that is called If Not You, Then Who? And so often I see in our industry, it's like, oh, I can do policies and procedures. ChatGPT can write that for me. And it's like, you know, but you need to, again, act as a business. So finding the resources to be able to help you with that. And you don't have to have a compliance person on staff. You know, that's the whole thing. It's like you can fractionalize your marketing, you can fractionalize your compliance. You know, those are things to look at too, and to make a business plan. Matt and I did, and maybe we'll do it again and do more of a business side of it rather than a marketing side, Matt. At the beginning of the year, we actually did it for 7 months, a series of business planning. Because that's important. You have a business, you know. So, you know, look at Sandra, you're in 14 different states. You obviously have done a great job being able to expand. So you're at a point, it's like, what does that look like? And so looking at the compliance piece, and I don't want to get into all of those pieces, but policies and procedures, what else are critical, Melissa? Obviously, we have mortgage call reports that they need to do. What else, as far as on the compliance side, they need to be aware of?
MERS is a big piece. So registering with MERS, they have the QA, you know, quality reports every year, the QA plan that you have to create, which we help with. We send you guys links to create that. They make it very, very easy. You are subject to a couple different reports because, again, you change from that broker to lender status. Some reports from a state reporting perspective are exempt because you're broker. You will, you know, have those additional state reports to complete each year. But the good news is your HMDA stuff doesn't change because you don't make those decisions. And that's the really big, that's the worst report, the HMDA report. So again, you don't have that from broker, you don't have that for retail or non-del. The other thing that I want to point out is I won't throw us under the bus. I know we have a lot of clients that like to use ChatGPT for policies. What gets you, though, is the execution of that. ChatGPT can't necessarily help you with. They can write it for you, but you need professionals to help you execute, either with Matt, with, you know, Ross, I'm sure you're seeing this with us. We partner with other, cybersecurity is huge. So we have IT vendors that we partner with. So the execution is really important when it comes to the policies and procedures that you guys write. That's why some people just need some extra help to actually execute those. They're going to check to see if you're doing what you say you're doing. So
Well, like your
that's,
anti-money laundering, those are things you still need to be aware of. Even though compliance, we've had regs that have been around for a long time, we forget about them, right?
right. Right.
So what you need to be aware of, where the states specifically are looking at, and every state is different when you're going through your exam. And so in the licensing side, I know a lot of states actually will do a setup review when somebody does go into retail. So having the ability to go through that and have a partner, I know puts a lot of states at ease as well, right?
Yeah, and it's frustrating from our perspective because you're right, each state examines differently. They go deeper into one topic versus another. And so to having the experience of someone who can help when you're in, like Sandra, multiple states or anybody else that's in a handful of states, they examine differently. And it's very frustrating as a business owner to navigate all of that. And that's again what we're here for, to partner with you through those exams so that you're not dealing with it alone and walking into the unknown.
Right. So who has questions? I mean, if you guys have questions, feel free to let us know at this point. Because we're, getting ready to wrap up, and I want to end with really some real world advice from our panelists. But do you have any questions right now that are like, and you don't have to ask publicly if you're like, hey, I just want to get in touch with them and I have a whole list of questions, that's fine too. But let us know. So Jeff, you put a question in here. So if you want, you can ask that, or I can read it for you, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, I mean, just trying to give a little context of who we are, right? Where we've come from. Nonprofit, mission-driven lender. I heard Matt's comment about, the size isn't really, an issue, but I'm just looking at this as right now, there's a lot of uncertainty in the CDFI fund world. Certain funding sources may or may not be there in the future. We have other funding sources that we tap into for our lending. Historically, we've grown up doing down payment assistance loans, purchase money seconds. They started out forgiveness, evolved to deferred loans. Now they're P&I loans. And we've been doing P&I seconds for, gosh, probably close to 20 years now. We only started in the primary mortgage lending space about 11 years ago, brokering with one lender initially, and just sort of growing our lender pool to about 4 or 5 right now. So the idea 11 years ago, before I came in 10 years ago, was to have a line of business to generate some revenue, right? On the broker lending side. And I don't think we've gotten quite there yet for scale, for this line to help us sort of sustain other cost centers. We have some work to do in that space, but I'm kind of laying it out there. We're you made the comment earlier, Matt, about size isn't really an issue, but for us, it's a consideration.
Right.
And
and Jeff, your business model is a little bit unique, so it's probably best to have a one-on-one conversation. But at the end of the day, listen, if you're doing size, the size is a myth that it was only for the bigger players. If you're only doing 1 or 2 forward mortgage loans a month, this may not be the best, right? Because there is going to be increased costs of insurance, and there is going to be per transaction costs, and it may not flow with what you're trying to do process-wise. But if you're consistently doing, I think, north of 3 to 5 units per month, I think it's a great opportunity. But if you're sporadic and you go 90 days without closing a loan, I don't know that if you close 5 loans a year, I don't know that it's going to be the best benefit for you. So,
sure.
Jeff, to your point, I think it would probably be best for us to have a conversation outside, just because of how you're personally are structured and the product set that you are looking to do.
Well, and looking at that too, and Jeff, thank you for sharing. And everyone's unique in their individual. We have two, on camera here, two completely different, 14 states, one state. But looking at the ability you want to build your business. So it's like, okay, setting that plan in place now, Jeff, and I think that's for a lot of the listeners and those who are maybe listening to the recording, it's like, what do I need to set in place in order to get to that point to where I can be that? And so I think that's a lot of where you're at. And a lot of setting that plan in place begins with your branding and your marketing and what you're doing on that. And so let's shift gears and kind of look at those benefits, because I know for you, Ross, that's a big one. And just, some real world advice as we kind of close out here from each of our panelists. But Ross, for you, you made the transition a while ago in 2012. If you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice, and this might relate and help you out, Jeff, too, at the beginning of the journey, what would that be?
Um, well, kind of what they're talking about a little bit is I actually got approved in around January, but I didn't do my first loan with them until more like October, November. So it took kind of a catalyst to happen on 3 loans in the same month for me to realize that I needed to be in this other path to make these loans go through. Jeff, I would ask you, if you don't mind telling us, kind of what's your average loan amount in Alaska? I mean, I'm in one of the poorest, low price states, and I'm doing, let's say 3 to 5 loans through first funding, but I might be closing 7, 8, 10 loans that aren't in total, the rest not going through first funding. But I'd be curious kind of what your loan amount is.
First of all, shout out LSU on the back wall. I grew up in Hammond before I moved
Perfect.
to Alaska, so
Nice.
I don't know where you're at, but it's cool
I'm
to
in
see that
Metairie.
background. I would say average loan amount's close to 300. Our
Okay.
acreage market is not cheap, and
Yeah.
prices.
So I mean, and the reason I wanted to ask is because your price point to get into this is going to be similar to mine, and if I'm doing it, and we've been doing it for a while, and my thought was that because my average loan amount is probably more in the 200 to 225 range. So, you're going to make more money per loan than I'm making. I can afford to do it. You can afford to do it. Okay. Yes, the first time there might be a little bit of an upfront cost, but once you get into that system, you'll understand. By the way, the insurance side, those guys will set you up on a payment plan. So if your new insurance policy is going to cost $2,800, it doesn't mean you've got to have $2,800 to pay them right away. You can say, send me a payment plan, and you pay $500 a month over 5, 6, 7 months, and you pay those guys the insurance. So you can
Are we
finance.
talking about like E&O and
Yeah.
just all that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got all that in place already, and
You may have to change coverages though to get
Gotcha.
up to a higher number, which could change your price point, but it's based on volume. It's based on the number of loans you close, right? So you should be able to do that. And if you've got 2,800 to pay them, awesome. And if you want to set up on a $400 payment plan, that works too. So the number of loans is important, but it's also how much money am I making every month? Can I afford to do this? And I think at those numbers you can. I was expecting your number to be there at 300 or higher. Okay. The other thing I want to mention, and Melissa touched on this briefly, was how much does it cost to do a loan? What can you put in your Schedule A? So, I just grabbed a fee sheet, and I'll flip this around and show you guys that I have this. So as an example, if I'm doing a brokered loan through this lender, my fee to do that with them is $1,195. But if I'm doing it as a correspondent, it's $895. So I have a $300 savings there, and some of these lenders have $400 or $500 in savings. I mean, I've got one lender that I know is $595 on the correspondent side, and they're over $1,000 on the broker side. Well, that doesn't mean you're giving that money away. Charge it. You now are doing doc preparation. because you're drawing your LE and your CD. You may be ordering your docs through Doc Magic now, or going through the investor. Charge it. We've upped our secondary charges. So not only are we making a commission, but now we're making flat fees as well for doing that work, because we're going to do that work on every single loan.
Processing.
Exactly. Processing, doc draw, doc prep, we can charge those fees as long as it's in compliance with your state. Okay. We don't charge in Louisiana, credit report costs $100. You only charge $100, right? But if I'm drawing all the closing documents, I can charge a fee for that. And then I charge whatever they charge for the doc draw company. So if it's $30 or $50, we charge that as well to the buyer.
Yeah. You can make more.
You can make more
besides
money
just
per loan.
Great. So
Yeah.
what's that one thing that you would have told yourself in getting started?
Mentioned, doing it sooner, but I don't think it has to be perfect, right? You can get yourself set up. Sandra, and again, Matt can probably answer this. Maybe you want to set up and offer it where you have the most control to start with, right? If that's California or another state or Texas, et cetera, if something gets messed up, you can just drive over and see Matt in Dallas, right? So, maybe you set it up someplace, get your processes in line, and then you expand it out to the rest of your states. There's a ton of flexibility within this. So, I mean, for me, once I got it started doing it, I do everything conventional, everything VA, everything USD through first funding. I do it all as buyer paid closings. I don't have to disclose commissions on CDs. I mean, it's just a much smoother process. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that, I mean, look, I lost almost a whole year after signing up. I mean, so when I say sooner, maybe that's,
execution. Yeah. You got started, but maybe the execution, which a lot of that execution, Melissa, that's where SCP can help. So Ross, thank you for that. And so oftentimes it's like, okay, this feels overwhelming. What would you say to them, and how can SCP help with that?
Yeah, and to Ross's point, you can start off with just conventional at one lender and pick the lender that will give you the most support too. Just again, especially with the disclosures. So if you guys are interested, we offer licensing to get you started. So looking at your licensed states, your current ones. If you want to expand, what does that look like? Do you have the right license? E&O, do you have a warehouse line? Do you have we start off with we do have a non-delegated correspondent membership here. So we do the policies, procedures. We also have a transition checklist. So everything that you're going to need to think about as you transition from broker, that's setting up your LOS, again, licensing, disclosures, MERS, all your reporting. And then who is going to help with that? Do you have someone internal to help with that? Do you have someone internally doing your MCRs with your LOS? Or do you need help from us? Do you need help with an IT vendor? Matt, who do you need help with, or who are you going to partner with to make sure all of these things are completed? So we do have the resources and the assistance to help you guys make that transition. And then we guide you through multiple phone calls, going over your compliance management program toolkit to set you up for success when it comes to an audit as well.
Perfect. And we'll make sure and send follow-up information as well. So Melissa, thank you for that. And so Matt, I'm going to close it out with you because I know you work with lenders all across the country who are building, who are scaling their non-DAO. What's one piece of advice that you'd give to someone just starting out to help them stay competitive and efficient from the beginning?
I just say leave no question unasked, right? I mean, moving your business from broker to banker is not something that you should take lightly and not something that you should just decide on a whim. And, You should just write down and ask all the questions. Surround yourself with experts that know the answers to the questions that you're asking, and you'll get good, honest feedback from everybody. People will call me all the time, and a lot of my sales team, and we'll give them the advice that they're just not ready to make that move today for whatever reason, maybe financially, maybe production wise, whatever it could be. We're not looking to do a hard sell on making moves from broker to banker, but just write and ask every question to everyone in our industry. One of the things that I've been doing this business, everyone on this call has probably been doing this for a while now, but I've been doing this for 25 years now. Our community of originators and investors and partners has never been stronger, right? We're all looking out for everyone's best interest out there. And I think that if you just surround yourself with experts to get the right answers, you'll be in good hands.
Perfect. I love it. Well, Matt, Ross, Melissa, thank you. Jeff and Sandra, and for those of you who are also listening, we want to thank you for your time. I will send a copy of the recording and then follow-up information along with all the contact information. So reach out, let us know what we can do to help. And thank you so much. You guys have a great day and a great weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.